Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the broadcaster and commentator Ali Miraj and The Guardian's political correspondent Alita Adu. Welcome and great to see both of you. So let us take a look at the front pages then, starting with The Guardian. Leads with Donald Trump's claim that Vladimir Putin would accept European troops in Ukraine as part of a potential ceasefire deal. The Telegraph reports that France is ready to use its nuclear deterrent to protect Europe, and all eyes will be on whether Starmer will follow suit ahead of his meeting with Trump later this week. Trump invites Zelensky to secure peace in weeks. That is on the front page of The Times, which comes after a row over Ukraine not being included in talks between the US and Russia. The eye focuses on President Trump telling the UK to stop blaming President Putin for the war in Ukraine. The Financial Times hears that the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will take part in talks with EU leaders later this week, aimed at fostering a pan-European defence alliance amid concerns that the Trump administration may withhold American aid. The Express speaks to campaigners intent on making sure that the state pension remains untaxed. The Metro has news of proposed legislation that would ban convicted sex offenders from changing their names in order to hide in plain sight. Taking back our towns, the Daily Mirror reports on pledges by the Home Secretary, including laws on knives, thieves and e-scooters. The Daily Mail is focusing on 19-year-old Nicholas Prosper, who killed his mother and two siblings, and who police now say was also planning to commit a mass shooting at his former primary school. It is a similar story for the front page of The Sun. Killer 19 plotted school massacre, their headline. And meantime, The Star's front page tells us that nuclear weapons will be needed to stop an asteroid from hitting Earth, but doesn't tell us when. It says here, or why, but it's heading our way. I think that's the why. Let's get more then from Ali and Alita. Welcome to both of you. Well, what a fascinating day, coalescing around the third anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, talk of which we'll come to later. But first of all, then to you, Alita, The Times, Trump invites Zelensky to secure peace in weeks. Finally, he's being included in the process, I suppose, is what this headline is saying.
Yes, quite. And it's, really interesting to see this focus on Trump's invitation of these talks, given how much development we saw over Trump's rhetoric in relation to Ukraine and Zelensky last week. He was calling him a dictator. He's making so many demands and trying to get Ukraine to accept a deal in which they should give some of their raw materials in response to how much assistance the Americans have given Ukraine. And now we're seeing this. We've got a really nice photo of Macron and Trump, all smiles, clasping hands in the Oval Office. And amidst this is the backdrop of course, we've got the third anniversary of this horrific war. And, what we will see in other papers is that Trump has been sort of boasting about how much he has done so far. He's been in his position to help secure peace and, draw these nations closer to a ceasefire. But of course, this depends on a number of things. And I'm sure Keir Starmer will also follow Macron's suit in ensuring that they want Trump to make sure that Ukraine is at the table in any sort of peace talks and negotiations going forward. Macron and Starmer spoke about this last night, and it seems as though some further progress is made on this today.
Yes, whether Sir Keir will do the bonding bromance we saw with, again, with these two, who knows? But it was fascinating to watch Macron. I'm sure Downing Street were watching it too, in preparation for Starmer's own visit to Trump and their own meeting. Yeah. Dear Donald, the praise, thank you for being, for inviting us, etc. But also again and again saying security guarantees. Of course, America should provide security guarantees for Ukraine, which is almost what everyone seems to agree is required should there be a lasting peace deal.
Well, indeed, and you're right. French diplomacy was on full display. A lot of dear Donald. Look, on the security guarantee point, it's very interesting because so far the US has not agreed to any security guarantee at all. In fact, they want to withdraw their support from what's going on the eastern flank of Europe, and that has got European leaders rightly rattled. Indeed, Friedrich Merz, who's likely now to become the Chancellor following the election in Germany, likely to form a government there, has said that effectively, the US has abandoned Europe. I mean, we're now living in a new reality.
There's your bromance moments.
Absolutely.
Anyway, do continue.
The bromance moments are there. And look, the Times is saying that Trump invites Zelensky to secure peace in weeks. Let's be clear, the reason why he's inviting Zelensky is because he's got 11.3 trillion of critical minerals, including lithium, cobalt and titanium, that the US wants. They also want Greenland for that reason as well. And he's got 10% of the world's lithium reserves in Ukraine, which is going to be used in every electric vehicle that's going around. So there are real reasons why Trump wants to do a deal. And he made it very clear in the press conference, I'm a deal guy. I do deals. I want to work with people who do deals. He is the ultimate deal maker, and that's what he wants. So this is an absolutely fundamental point for Europe now. What are they going to do? How are they going to step up? I mean, this is what The Guardian is also saying now as well, that Putin will accept Europe's troops in Ukraine after Ukraine ceasefire. This is because the Russians so far have been saying that they will not accept European troops on any front line at all. Trump saying, don't worry, I've spoken to Putin, this will happen. We don't know.
Whether it's true or not, we don't know. Whether it bounces Putin into action or acceptance, we don't know either.
We don't know, but they've got some leverage, I guess, the US over Russia, because at the UN General Assembly today, there was this vote on the third anniversary of the war in Ukraine about basically accusing Russia of starting the war. The US abstained, along with a handful of other states, completely on its own, including North Korea, Belarus and Sudan.
There you go, you've read them out. Yeah, exactly. And just on that Times article, as you said, Trump invites Zelensky to secure peace in weeks is the headline. Second paragraph, he'll invite him to share Ukraine's natural resources. He'd visit the White House this week or next to conclude a deal to share those resources. Yes. He also hoped for a similar deal on Russia's rare earth minerals. On the day that Sir Keir Starmer announced more sanctions against Russia. So there's clearly not singing yet from the same hymn sheet, which takes us to the eye, does it not? Stop blaming Putin for the war. That's America's message to the UK ahead of this crunch visit. Presumably this is Trump's strategy to bring Putin to the negotiating table, is it?
Yes, and I mean, how far he'll get with that in terms of getting European leaders on side, I mean, that remains to be seen, because quite frankly, I mean, when the US is aligning itself with the likes of Belarus, North Korea, you know, nations like that, I mean, it doesn't put itself in a necessarily good light. I think it was very interesting that that UN motion was being voted on in the midst of, you know, Macron and Trump having this meeting in the Oval Office and seeming like everything is, you know, hunky-dory and everything is, you know, seems to be fine. But ultimately, you know, as the weeks go on, I mean, it's been a very sombre day. We've had G7 leaders in talks discussing how they can bolster their support for Ukraine. Of course, we've had the UK government unleashing, you know, a number of sanctions against Russia to prove that they don't want to seem like they are appeasing Trump in a way that they will sort of allow Putin to, you know, have his own demands and they won't be able to criticise him. I think they all want to show some sort of strength. And as Ali rightly said, you know, we've got the new German Chancellor coming in, already being quite critical and, you know, trying his best to essentially say we don't want to rely on America and we also want to distance ourselves from Putin by ensuring our support for Ukraine remains strong. Yeah. But again, I mean, it's just remarkable that even on the third anniversary of this horrific war, you know, America really couldn't find itself to even, you know, condemn Russia's aggression. It's really quite alarming. And
even Boris Johnson, who was in Kyiv, actually, where we saw, you know, lots of leaders, him presumably not invited to that. He said it was like saying the swimmers attacked the shark in Jaws.
Yes.
Or it was like America bombed their own warships at Pearl Harbor. Totally Orwellian to suggest that Russia had not started this war, which is what the, you know, this article says.
Which is all fine. Which is all fine, but talk is cheap. So let's get down to the brass tacks on this issue. The West talks a good game. The West has not given Ukraine, on the third anniversary, when you look back, the West has not given Ukraine what it needs to win the war. It simply hasn't given enough. I mean, you're looking at the Russian economy, 40% economic output is linked to the war. It's on a war footing. Putin has got two things. He's got the risk appetite, which the West doesn't have, and he's got the time horizon, which the West doesn't have either. He thinks in decades, not in years, and Putin knew very well that the West would never have the wherewithal to see this through, and that's exactly what's happening. Because when we're talking now about potentially putting our economies on a war footing, which, if they're serious, the Europeans are going to have to do. And the Telegraph is talking about France providing a nuclear shield to Europe. Friedrich Merz is talking about the fact that the US is indifferent to the fate of Europe. Well, that may be the case. But if you want to actually step up and put your economies on a war footing, you're going to have to level with your publics that this is existential and it requires a massive investment in defence. I mean, Starmer's going on Thursday to meet President Trump, apparently going to reveal the great reveal of 2.5%. Trump wants 5%. He doesn't want 2.5%. 2.5% is not even an amuse-bouche. I mean, come on, this is not serious.
Yeah, and just a very quick look at the FT as well. Under the bromance picture, Britain is to join European leaders for talks on this continent-wide defence funding push, which we heard was announced today by the European Commission leader in Kyiv at that discussion. So we'll certainly find out more about that. It's going to be very interesting to see. Anyway, lots more still to come in the next part of our programme, including an MP suspended by Labour is jailed for assault. So is a by-election on the horizon, and what might that mean? Back in a moment.
The town famous for a fake grooming scandal
I did not leave the house for about 3 years.
had a secret that until recently wasn't known.
Barrow got branded to be a lying town. It's not. Grooming was happening here.
There were other liars in this town with other secrets.
She is naming men who go on to be convicted of offences against other women and girls.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters. We love Trump! I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised. If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me once again, Ali and Alita. Welcome back to both of you. Let's head to the prospects of a potential by-election. This is after, as this report tells us from the Metro, a former Labour MP who punched a constituent in a street row was jailed for 10 weeks. We remember the pictures. They were quite extraordinary, were they not, Alita?
Shocking footage that the Mail uncovered around October. I mean, you know, we saw an elected MP repeatedly punching his constituent who, according to this video, had asked him about a bridge that was closing in the constituency. Now, you know, we've moved on since then. Obviously, Mike has now been charged and he's going to prison for 10 weeks. So surely, I mean, many people are asking, well, why is this person still an MP? Obviously, he's been suspended by the Labour Party, and they did so swiftly after this story emerged. But, I mean, as it stands, according to the rule book, I mean, he will be able to be an MP until any sort of appeal process is concluded, which is quite remarkable. And that process will also take 6 weeks. So if his constituents want to get him out, they'll have 6 weeks to do so, and there's like a 10% threshold for people to, you know, support this motion. But we've got so many, you know, opposition parties, you know, MPs from across the House saying, OK, he needs to do the right thing and quit because it's making all other parliamentarians look bad. I mean, trust in politics is already at a low. It's not everywhere. I mean, obviously, in Germany, we saw, you know, there were high threshold of voters. You know, 80% of people turned out. It wasn't the case like that in the UK last year. I think, you know, it would do a massive service to voters if they could have this.
And this is the Runcorn and Helsby constituency, and the prospect is a recall petition which would trigger a by-election if signed by 10% of voters in his seat after the appeals process, as you pointed out. Daily Express, the state pension should not be taxed, says the Express. What are the figures we're talking about here?
Basically, they're saying that the tax-free allowance has been held at £12,570, and the state pension is due to rise this year to £11,973. So if it goes up by a further 5% in 2026, it's going to take it above the tax-free threshold. A long way of basically saying that this stealth tax of holding the tax-free, the tax-free bands or the tax thresholds static, it's basically a stealth tax, and this is going to affect people whose main income is the state pension. They're going to have to pay tax if this is not increased in line with inflation. It's a stealth tax by any other name. The government needs to raise money. It's got $2.7 trillion of public debt. It's got looking around where it can get money from. Freezing tax thresholds is a nice, benign way of looking like you're not really raising taxes, but you're doing it by the back door.
We're really running out of time, but we did want to reflect on the extraordinary singer Roberta Flack, who has died at the age of 88. Alita, first of all.
Yeah, she has an incredible life. I mean, I didn't realise that she was actually 88 because she looks incredibly well. I mean, she did in recent pictures. She was a classical singer and she was training opera singers, and that's how she sort of came to fame. But, I mean, I'm a massive fan of her music. I'm not sure about you, Ali.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. That'll do me for now. Thank you very much indeed, Ali. Alita, thank you both very much indeed. See you for more in the 11, back with all the top stories.